Hi, this is Matt with AppliancePartsPros.com. Today we'll be showing you how to repair your appliance. Remember, anytime you work on an appliance, make sure it's unplugged or the circuit breakers are off so there's no chance of electrocution. Also make sure you turn off your hot and cold water supplies. In this video we're going to show you how to change out the Whirlpool washer outer tub. It's going to be a very easy repair and should only take a few minutes to show you how to do it. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can click on the link below or get it at AppliancePartsPros.com. When you open up the package, you're going to get the new outer tub, which includes the bearings, the tub seal, and the shaft. The outer tub is located inside the washing machine. The main reasons you'd be changing it out is if it's cracked or damaged and you're getting water leaking on the floor, or the seal and the bearings have gone bad and you'd rather change out the whole assembly versus rebuilding it with the seal and bearing kit. In order to change the part, we have to go around to the back of the washer. Now that we're around the back of the washer, we can take the fill hoses off the water valve. We're going to put a towel down on the floor to catch any water that may come out. Once you have the towel down, we can grab our pliers and take the hoses off. When you're taking these off, you want to remember which one's hot and which one's cold so you don't put them on the wrong spot when we put them back on. Once you have the hose broken free, you can just unscrew it with your hand. We can use a 1/4-inch nut driver to remove all the screws to take the back panel off. Now that we have all the screws out, we can take the panel off and set it aside. Now that we have the back panel off the washer, we have to remove everything from the outer tub. First thing we're going to do is throw a towel down to catch any water that may come out. And then we're going to start over here on the right hand side and take the recirculation hose off. First we're going to take off the clamp that holds the recirculation hose to the tub. We're going to use a 5/16 nut driver to take it out. Once you have the screw out, you can move the clamp out of the way. You can leave it on the hose. We're going to have to put it back on when we reassemble everything. Then we can go up and remove the upper clamp on the recirculation hose. It's located behind this black panel. You're going to want to push the tub back a little bit so you have room to reach up in there with the pliers and take the clamp off. In our case, somebody changed it to a screw type clamp, so we're going to use our 5/16 nut driver to loosen up the clamp so we can pull the hose off. Once you have your clamp off, you can pull the hose off the fitting on the tub. Then we can use our pliers to lift up the lower clamp. All you have to do is compress it and lift it up so it's up here on the hose. And then we can pull the recirculation hose off the pump. Once you have the recirculation hose off the pump, you can pull it out of the washer and set it aside. Then we can remove the clamp that holds the hose to the tub. We're just going to slide it down the hose and take the hose off the tub. If your hose is stuck on the tub, you can use a small flathead screwdriver to help break it free. And then we can go over and do the drain pump. We're going to take this hose off the same way. We're just going to compress the clamp and move it down the hose. The hose is stuck onto the tub. You can use your screwdriver to help break it free. Then we can take our 5/16 nut driver and remove this screw that holds the wiring harness against the drain hose. Once you have that off, we can get the wiring harness out of the way. And then we can grab our pliers again and move the clamp up the drain hose. Once you have the clamp out of the way, we can reach over and pull the hose off the drain pump. Once you have the drain hose off the drain pump, you can follow it up to this white fitting, and we have to unsnap that from the support rod. All you have to do is flex it off, and then you can follow this clear hose down. We're going to use our 5/16 nut driver to take out the screw and then detach it from the tub. Once you have the screw out, then you can follow the hose down and pull it off the side of the tub. Once you have the hose off the side of the tub, you can pull it around from the back side of the suspension rod. Then we're going to follow the drain hose up even farther and remove the drain hose retainer. To remove the drain hose retainer, we're just going to use our 1/4-inch nut driver and take out this one screw. Once you have the screw out, there's a couple locking tabs up here that you have to pull down. And once you have them disconnected, you can kind of swing it out of the way. We're not going to do anything other than get it out of the way a little bit. Just leave it right here. To tilt the washer up, we're just going to carefully tilt it forward. You want to be careful that you set it on something that doesn't damage the washer. Now that we have the washer tilted up, we have access to everything underneath that we have to take off. First thing we're going to do is take off the motor assembly. It's held in by a bolt with a 1/4-inch Allen wrench. So we're going to use an Allen wrench and take it out. If you have a socket with an Allen wrench on it, you can use that too. We're going to turn it until one of these holes lines up, and then we're going to put a small screwdriver in here to hold it while we loosen the bolt. Once you have the bolt loose, you can take the screwdriver out and just hold the rotor. The bolt will never come out of the rotor, but once you feel that it stops being in the threads, we can reach up and grab the rotor and wiggle it off. Once you have it off, you can set it aside. Now that we have the rotor off, we have access to the stator. If you'll notice, there's a crack by each bolt, meaning that the stator is starting to fail. Anytime you're in here working and you notice something is damaged, it's always best to change it while you're in here so you don't have to do it later. To get the stator out, we're going to use a 3/8-inch ratchet with a socket to take the bolts out. As you're taking the last bolt out, you want to make sure you hold the stator so it doesn't fall. Once you have all the bolts out, you can rock the stator back and forth a little bit to break it free. Should come off pretty easy. And then you want to grab the motor shield from behind it, pull it out and set it aside. And then we're going to carefully set the stator down. Once you have the stator out, we can take the wire harnesses off. On this one, all you have to do is carefully pull it off. And for the rotor position sensor, there's a little locking tab on each side. We're going to take a small flathead screwdriver and pop them off. Just want to be careful they don't break. Once you have one side off, the other one usually comes off by itself. Once you have everything disconnected, you can take the stator out and carefully set it aside. Now we can take off the circulation and the drain pump. Each one has 3 bolts and a wiring harness that we have to disconnect. We're going to use our 5/16-inch nut driver to take the bolts out. As you're taking the last bolt out, you want to make sure you hold it so it doesn't fall. Once you have all the bolts out, we're going to rotate it over and disconnect the wiring harness from its little holder clip and then from the motor itself. There's a little locking tab on the top. We're going to press that and carefully pull the connector out. Once you have it disconnected, we can set the circulation pump aside. Now we're over on the left side of the washer. We're going to take out the drain pump. Want to make sure you hold it as you're taking the last bolt out. Once you have it free, we can turn it around and unclip the wiring harness. And then on the drain pump, there's a cover that we have to open up. All you have to do is flex it. And then same thing, there's a wiring harness with a locking tab. And we're just gonna pull it off the pump. Once you have the wiring harness disconnected, you can pull the drain pump out of the washer. Now we can remove the wiring harnesses from the 4 points. All you have to do is pull these out. Once you have them disconnected, we can take the whole wiring harness and get it out of the way. We're going to lift it up and just tape it up here to the drain hose so it's out of the way and none of the connectors get damaged as we're moving the washer around. Once you have it secure and out of the way, we can lift the washer back up on its feet, and then we can go around front and lift up the top. We have to lift the top up so we can take off everything inside. We have to put a piece of tape on the lid so when we lift it up, it doesn't open up. You want to make sure you use a good piece of tape so it doesn't come open while you're working on it. Now that we have the lid taped down, we have to release the locks that hold the top to the cabinet. They're located about 6 inches in from each corner. We're going to slide the putty knife in and you'll feel it spring against the lock. Once you have the lock pushed in, you can twist the putty knife to release it, and you have to lift up on the top and separate it. You got to be careful so it doesn't snap back down. Once you have one side up, we can come do the other side. Once you have them both released, you can carefully lift the top up. Once you have the top up all the way, we're going to support it with a lanyard. These hinges aren't very strong, and you don't want to use those to try to support the whole top assembly. So we're going to use a lanyard and just hook it into the top and then onto the cabinet. Now that we have the top up, we can take the agitator out of the inner tub. There's a little hole right here on the cap. We're going to take a small flathead screwdriver and kind of pry in here to lift it off. Once you have it off, you can set it aside, and then we can reach in and pull the dust cover off and make sure the O-ring is on it. Now that we have the dust cover out of the way, we have access to the bolt at the bottom of the agitator. We're going to reach in with a 7/16 socket with a long extension and take it out. As you start to loosen it, the tub may start to turn, so you may have to hold the agitator to break the bolt free. Once you have the bolt loose, we're going to lift the upper agitator out and set it aside. You want to be careful as you take it out. You don't want it to fall apart, otherwise the agitator dogs in there are going to have to be put back together. So just keep it all as one piece and set it aside. With the upper agitator out of the way, we can take this little ring bearing out and set it aside. Once you have the bearing set aside, we can reach in and pull the lower agitator out. You might have to get your fingers underneath it and wiggle it back and forth. You want to be careful that you don't hit yourself as you're pulling it out. Once you have it off the shaft, you can pull it out of the washer. Now that we have the agitator out, we can remove the tub cover. There's a bunch of locking tabs around the outer edge of the tub cover. We're just going to go around and release them, and then lift up on the tub cover so we can take it off. Once you have all the tabs released, you can lift the tub cover off and set it aside. Now we can take out the basket hub. We're going to use a Phillips screwdriver to reach in and take all the screws out. Now that we have all the screws out, we can reach in and pull the basket hub out. Once you have the first piece out, you can reach in and pull the second one off. Once you have both pieces out, you can set them aside. Now that we have the hub out, we can take the inner tub out. Now, There are lots of people saying that they have problems lifting their inner tub out because it gets so gunked up around the shaft. So you can put a bunch of penetrating oil in between the shaft and the tub and let it soak in and try to lift it out. You should try to lift the tub with one person on each side. You can also use a jack and a 2x4 in order to help lift the tub out. Our tub actually came out fairly easy, but we're going to show you how to do the 2x4 method with the jack, just in case yours is stuck in there. We're going to use a piece of wood that we have in the room. You want to use a 2x4, which is more sturdy and can take the pressure. Once you let the penetrating oil soak in, you want to get a 2x4. This is our stand-in 2x4 that we're going to use. And you want it to be about 22 inches. You can measure from each side of your tub. And you want the wood to fit in there. And you're going to have to turn it to get it to go down in and then lift up. And as you lift up, there's a lip on the inside of the tub where the metal part of the tub turns in. And that's where you want the wood to catch on each side. If you try to catch it on this plastic rim that's on the top of the metal, you're just going to break this off the tub as you try to lift it out. So ours was about 22 inches long, but you can measure yours just to make sure you get the right length. Once you have the wood cut to length, we can grab the jack and put it in there. It's going to be a little bit of a balancing act, but you want to set the jack just on top of the drive shaft and then put your piece of wood in here and set it on top of the jack. And then once you have the jack run up to where it's holding the wood, you're going to slowly start to lift the tub. If you can't turn your jack by hand, you can grab a screwdriver and use that to turn the jack. But you just want to slowly and carefully, so you don't stress anything or break anything, slowly lift the inner tub off the drive shaft. Once you hear the tub pop or come off the shaft enough that you can lift it out, you can loosen up the jack so we can pull the wood and the jack out. Once you have the jack and the wood out of the tub, we can lift it out of the washer. Once you have the tub free, we can reach in and lift it out. You want to have somebody help you so it's lifted equally on both sides and comes out pretty easy. Once you have it out, you can set it aside. Now that we have the inner tub out, we can go around and remove all the suspension rods. There's one in each corner. We're going to use a broomstick to reach down, and each corner you need to lift up on the tub, and there's a little bushing down there on the outer tub that we need to knock out so the suspension rod comes off the drum. They all come off the same way. We're just going to go around and do each one. Now that we have all the suspension rods off, we can take the outer tub out of the machine. Now we're at the back of the washer. We're going to pull the outer tub out through the back opening. So we're just going to lift up and bring it over the lip here, and then we're just going to kind of rotate it and pull it out. Once you have the outer tub out of the machine, you can set it aside. Here's the old outer tub next to the new one. If you already have one of these, great. If not, you can get it at appliancepartspros.com. We do have to change the filter over from the old one to the new one, and we'll do that before we put it in the washer. The filter is located at the bottom of the tub. In the washer, it's located in the back where the pumps are. We're just going to reach in with a 1/4-inch nut driver and take the screws out and lift it out of place. Once you have both screws out, you can reach down and lift it out of the tub. Once you have it out, we can clean it up and put it into the new outer tub. To put the filter into the new outer tub, we're just going to lower it down and set it into place. Once you have it in place, we can put the screws in with our 1/4-inch nut driver. Once you have the filter installed, we can put the outer tub into the washer. To put the new outer tub in the washer, You want to make sure that the filter is located at the back, just like it would be in the washer. And we're going to tilt it and feed it in just the opposite of when we took it out. Once you have the tub in the washer, we can go around and put all the suspension rods on. To put the suspension rod on, we're going to lift the outer tub up, and you want to make sure that the blue collar goes into the outer tub, and these two locking tabs lock it into place. Now we can go around and do the other three. Now we can put the inner tub back in. You want to carefully set it on the top of the washer and then lift it up and line it up on the drive shaft and set it in place. Once you have the inner tub in place, we can put the basket hub in. To put the driver hub in, all you have to do is set it down on the shaft. You want to make sure that the silver washer didn't fall off on the backside. All you have to do is line up the teeth and slide it down. Once you have it all the way down, we can put the driven hub on. Same thing with that. You want to lower down and line up the teeth with the driver hub. And if it doesn't line up with your screw holes, you may have to lift it up and turn it a couple teeth until it does. Once you have the holes lined up, we can use our Phillips screwdriver to put the screws back in. When you're putting the screws back in, you may want to put some towels down inside the inner tub to plug the holes. Otherwise, if a screw falls through, you're going to have to pull the inner tub out to get the screw out. Now that we have the basket hub in, we can put the tub cover on. To put the tub cover on, all you have to do is line it up with the outer lip of the new tub. And you want to make sure that the recirculation hose fitting is up here in the back, so it lines up when we put that hose in. Once you have it lined up, we can just go around and lock all the locking tabs in. Once you have the tub cover snapped into place, we can put the agitator back into the tub. We took the lower and the upper agitator out separately. We're going to put them back together and set it down all as one piece. You may have to move the agitator back and forth a little bit to get the splines to line up, so the agitator goes down all the way. Once you have the agitator in place, we can use our 7/16" socket and a long extension with the ratchet to tighten it down. Once you get it tight, the tub's going to start to turn. You're going to have to reach in and hold the agitator on the lower part so you can tighten it down. Once you have it tightened down, you can pull the socket out and we can put the cover and the cap on. Before you put the cover on, you may want to get the O-ring wet. It helps it slide down into the agitator easier. Once you have the cover in, we can put the agitator cap back on. All you have to do is line it back up with the top of the agitator and snap it into place. Now that you have the agitator put back in, we can put the top of the machine back down. To put the top back down, we have to take the lanyard off first. We're going to lift up on the top a little bit to take the tension off. Then we can unhook the lanyard on the top and the bottom. Then we can carefully lower the top down. As you lower it down, you want to make sure that these holes right here line up on the bolts as you lower it down. Once you have the top down and the holes lined up with the bolts, you can push it down to lock it in place. Once you have the top down and secure, we can take the tape off the lid. Now we're around the back of the washer. We're going to reroute all the hoses and the wiring harnesses and get all that attached to the tub so we can tilt it up and put everything back on underneath. Once you have that all free, we can reconnect the drain hose retainer to the cabinet. To put the retainer in place, we're going to put these two upper tabs into the openings in the cabinet. Once you have them hooked into place, then we can push it in so this tab is behind it and lift it up into place. Then we can use the 1/4-inch nut driver to put the screw in to hold it in place. Now that we have the retainer attached to the cabinet, we can go underneath and reconnect the water level pressure switch hose. To reroute the hose, we're going to put it on the back side of the suspension rod. And then we're going to reclip this to the suspension rod. Then we can follow the hose down and connect it to the side of the tub. You want to make sure you push it all the way on the fitting so you get a good tight seal. Once you have it in place, we can grab the 5/16 nut driver and put the screw in that holds the clamp in place. Now that we have the water level pressure switch hose hooked up, we can go to the other side and put on the recirculation hose. To put the recirculation hose on, we're going to lift it up into place and put this end on. We got this end wet so it slides onto the fitting easier. Once you have it lined up, you can push it on all the way. Once you have it on all the way, you can move your clamp up. You're going to have to use your pliers to do this. We're going to slide ours up and use our 5/16 nut driver to tighten it down. Now that we have the top clamp tightened down, we're going to leave the middle clamp and the one that goes on the pump disconnected until we put the pump in. Now we can put everything back on the bottom of the washer. You want to support it as you tilt it forward, just like you did before, with something that's going to support the washer and not damage it. Once you have it supported, we can go underneath and put everything on. Now that we're underneath the machine, we're going to grab the wiring harness and remount it to the tub. Remember, we have about 4 of these little connectors to push in to hold it in place. So we're going to run it down next to the drain hose, and the first one goes right here. And then we're going to run the wire to the circulation pump over, plug that one in. And the last 2 are over here for the rotor position sensor and the other switch. Once you have the wire harnesses run, we're going to put the circulation pump in. We're going to hook up the wiring harness first, where the wiring harness goes underneath this clip to hold it in place. Once you have the wiring harness clipped in, we can reconnect it to the motor. Remember, it has a locking tab on it, so all you have to do is line up the tabs and lock it in place. Once you have the wiring harness plug locked in, we can rotate the circulation pump over and line it up with its mounting holes. Once you have it in place, we can grab the 5/16 nut driver and put the screws in. We're not going to tighten these down just in case you have to move the pump around. We're just going to get them started. And then once you have all 3 in, we can tighten them all down. Once you have the 3rd screw in and tightened down, you can go tighten the other 2 down. Now we can go on the other side and mount the drain pump. Same as the circulation pump, we're going to run the wiring harness first and then mount the drain pump. So the wiring harness gets clipped right here on the side of the motor. And then we can turn the drain pump and run the wiring harness up to the connector. It has a locking tab on it just like the other one, so all you have to do is push it in and lock it in place. Once you have it in place, we can close the cover and then rotate the drain pump over. As you're lifting the drain pump up to line up the mounting holes, you want to push the drain hose onto the tub. It's easier to put on now than later. Once you have everything lined up, we can use our 5/16 nut driver to put the screws in. Once you have the 3rd screw in and tightened down, we can go tighten the other 2 down. Now that we have the drain pump installed, we can connect the hoses. When we put the drain pump on, we made sure this hose went onto the fitting. You just want to make sure you push it up all the way against the tub, and then we can grab a pliers and move the hose up to get a good seal. Once you have the clamp in place, we can put the drain hose on. The drain hose has this wiring harness that's in the way, so we're going to have to kind of move this out of the way a little bit. And then we can slip the drain hose down onto the drain pump. There's a little tab right here and a notch in the hose that you have to put it in. Once you have it in place, we can grab the pliers and move the clamp down. Once you have the clamp in place, we're going to take the wiring harness and kind of push it in behind this little mounting peg right here. And then we're going to use our 5/16 nut driver to put that screw with the big washer in to hold it in place. Once you have the screw tightened down, we can go over and put everything on the circulation pump. On the circulation pump, if the hose didn't line up when you put the pump on, you can line it up to the fitting and push it all the way up so the hose touches the tub. And then we can grab our pliers and move the hose clamp up. Then we can connect the recirculation hose, same as the drain pump. There's a notch and a tab on the pump that we have to line up, and they go into each other. Once you have it pushed all the way down, we can grab the pliers and move the clamp down. Once you have the recirculation hose clamped down, we can grab the plastic clamp and slide it up to the middle of the hose, and then we can use our 5/16 nut driver to put the screw in to hold it in place. Once you have the recirculation hose mounted, we can go underneath and put the motor assembly back together. Before we put everything back together, we want to point out that the holes in the new tub are not threaded from the manufacturer. The bolts that hold the stator in place are actually self-tapping screws. So these are going to be harder to drive in because you're cutting the threads at the same time. Now we can put the motor stator back on. You want to make sure that the metal plate is still on the back side. We're going to grab the wiring harness and turn it around so we can plug it on. Remember, there's only one way it can go. Just make sure you push it down nice and careful so you get a good connection. And then we can put the rotor position sensor on. There's an arrow on the stator and on the sensor. You want to line those up and then push it in so it locks into place. Remember, there's a locking tab here and here. You want to make sure those are locked into the stator. And then we can rotate this over and lift it up into place. Once you get it around, we're going to lift the shield in behind it. Once you have the motor shield in position, you can lift the stator up and set it in place. Once you have the stator in place, we can put the metal plate on the outside and hold it in there while we grab our 3/8" socket with the ratchet and put one of the bolts in. Once you have the first one in, you can go around and put the other 3 in. Once you have the last bolt tight, we're going to go around once again just to make sure they're all tight, and then we can put the rotor on. When we took the rotor off, we saw that there was some thread locker on the bolt. Since it's really hard to get the thread locker up into the rotor where the bolt is, we're just going to put some into the drive shaft. We're going to use the blue type that's removable. You don't want to use the red type. You'll never get the bolt out again. Once you have the threads coated, you can wipe off any excess, and then we can put the rotor back in place. When you put the rotor on, you want to make sure that the splines are aligned with the splines on the drive shaft. If not, it's going to lock up and make it very hard to get off and realign. So to put it on, we're just going to flip it over, and you may have to move it back and forth a little bit to line up the splines and get it to go on correctly. Once you have it on, we can grab the 1/4 inch Allen wrench and tighten it down. If it starts to spin, you can hold it as you tighten the bolt down. Once you have it tight, the rotor will start to turn. You want to turn it until these holes line up. And then we can put the small Phillips screwdriver in there and hold it while we tighten the bolt down. Once you have it tightened up, you can pull the screwdriver and the Allen wrench off, and we can put the washer back up on its feet. To put the washer back on its feet, we're going to carefully tilt it down. Once you have it on its feet, we can put the back panel on. To put the back panel on, all you have to do is line up the large tabs with the cutouts. Then you can lift the back panel up, and we can use a 1/4 inch nut driver to put one of these top screws in to hold it in place while we go around and put all the other screws in. When you put the hot and cold water hoses on, you want to make sure you put the cold on the cold and the hot on the hot. You can start them by hand so you don't strip the threads, and then use your pliers to tighten them down so you get a good seal. Now that we have the washer put back together, we can plug it back in, turn the water back on, and take it for a spin. Thanks for joining us for another successful repair brought to you by AppliancePartsPros.com. Check out our other repair videos on our site, Facebook, and YouTube.